Today, our planet is home to nearly 4,000 species of snakes. These scaly, legless reptiles are found on every continent except Antarctica, having adapted to an incredible range of climates and environments. From dense tropical rainforests to arid deserts, snakes rank among the world's most colorful, innovative, and at times dangerous predators. But they weren't always so diverse and advanced. Long before giant pythons or deadly cobras roamed the earth, the ancestors of snakes were nothing more than small, ordinary lizards. These early creatures lived during the late Jurassic and early Cretaceous periods, around 160 to 100 million years ago. At that time, dinosaurs dominated the land as the largest animals ever to walk the earth. Groups like sauropods and ceratopsians were reaching record sizes, but in their shadows, lesser-known reptiles were undergoing important transformations. This is where the story of snake evolution begins, with populations of small lizards inhabiting dense forests of the southern hemisphere. Within these lush ecosystems, they often navigated through tree roots and thick underbrush while hunting small creatures like insects and worms. To move more easily in such cramped environments, some lizards developed longer, slimmer bodies, and their limbs gradually began to shrink. It's a common myth that snakes lost their legs simply from disuse. In reality, this change happened gradually over millions of years, driven by natural selection, a process we can still trace in the fossil record. Most primitive snakes lost their front limbs before their hind ones. One example is Najash rionegrina, a two-legged terrestrial reptile often regarded as a transitional species in snake evolution. Najash had a long, flexible body and jaws that opened wider than typical lizards, enabling it to swallow larger prey. Yet it still retained more primitive features, including a sacrum, a pelvic girdle, and two small but functional hind limbs. Even though Najash had legs, they were likely too small for walking. Instead, it probably moved by wiggling or undulating its body, an early form of slithering, much like snakes today. Its hind limbs may have served specialized purposes, like digging or mating. Najash was among the earliest snakes, but not the only one. Another ancient form, Paschirhachis, lived roughly 98 million years ago. Its fossils were discovered in marine limestone, suggesting it spent part of its life in water. Like Najash, Paschirhachis had hind limbs, but they were even less useful, showing a further step in the transition toward modern snakes. Over time, the hind limbs of these early snakes became smaller and mostly vestigial, though they didn't always vanish completely. Evidence of them still exists in modern boas and pythons, which retain remnants of pelvic bones and tiny external spurs near the rear of their bodies. These little structures may seem insignificant, but they tell us an important story about how snake anatomy developed over millions of years. By the close of the Cretaceous period, snakes were already advancing, establishing themselves as efficient hunters. But then came a cataclysm, the Cretaceous-Paleogene extinction. About 66 million years ago, a massive asteroid struck Earth, wiping out nearly 75% of all species, including the non-avian dinosaurs. In the aftermath, survival was difficult for creatures of every kind, yet snakes managed to endure and even thrive. Their low metabolic needs meant they could survive long periods without food, unlike larger animals. Many also lived in sheltered places such as burrows, which protected them from extreme conditions. These traits gave them a unique advantage, allowing snakes to expand into powerful, dynamic predators. During this new era, snakes primarily thrived in vast tropical habitats that were spreading across the Earth. In the hot, humid climate of the Paleocene epoch, rainforests became centers of thriving life. They were filled with mammals, reptiles, birds, and fish. Abundant prey for larger snake species, including the terrifying Titanoboa charajonensis. This gigantic, semi-aquatic predator grew to nearly 13 meters in length, making it the largest snake ever discovered. Though it shared many traits with modern boas, its behavior may have resembled that of today's anaconda. Titanoboa likely hid in shallow waters, its massive body concealed as it ambushed prey. It would strike with sharp teeth and then crush its victims with immense coils, a method of hunting called constriction, still used by many snakes today. The Earth remained warm and tropical through the Paleocene and early Eocene, until around 50 million years ago, when a slow cooling trend began. As the planet cooled, rainforests gave way to woodlands, grasslands, and savannas. These new habitats offered snakes new challenges and opportunities, spurring more diversity in their evolution. In grasslands, for instance, snakes faced faster prey and fewer hiding spots. To adapt, some species developed entirely new hunting strategies. The ancestors of vipers and elapids evolved fast-acting venoms delivered through fangs, enabling them to quickly immobilize animals larger than themselves. Instead of slow constriction, they struck with lightning speed, killing in minutes. Other snakes refined their senses. Pit vipers, for example, evolved heat-detecting organs near their nostrils that allowed them to sense infrared radiation, letting them hunt in complete darkness by detecting body heat. Perhaps the most iconic snake adaptation is the forked tongue. Though not unique to snakes, it is one of their most fascinating features. Unlike most animals, snakes don't use their tongues to taste food. Instead, they collect tiny chemical particles from the air or ground, bringing them to the Jacobson's organ inside the mouth. This structure processes the particles, helping snakes sense their surroundings, track prey, and even locate mates, essentially a chemical navigation system. By the Miocene epoch, about 23 million years ago, snakes had already developed many of their modern traits. As Earth's climate continued cooling through the Miocene and Pliocene, more open habitats expanded, favoring venomous species like cobras and vipers. In deserts, where sand made movement difficult, snakes developed an innovative style of locomotion called sidewinding, which helped them glide across dunes with ease. Before reaching the modern era, snakes had to survive the ice ages of the Pleistocene epoch. During this time, much of the northern hemisphere was covered in icy tundra, often too cold for snakes. Many species retreated toward the equator, while others adapted by entering brumation, a seasonal dormancy similar to hibernation, where they slowed their breathing and metabolism to conserve energy. This adaptation helped many species endure the freezing conditions. Though another wave of extinctions at the end of the Pleistocene wiped out many large mammals like saber-toothed cats and dire wolves, snakes remained successful predators. Today, however, human activity threatens them in new ways. Habitat destruction and fragmentation, particularly in South America and Southeast Asia, have reduced their numbers. Humans have also introduced invasive species that compete with or prey upon snakes, such as mongooses. Still, snakes persist. They live in our fields, parks, and gardens, quietly preying on pests and slipping through the unnoticed edges of our world. While they may sometimes inspire fear, snakes remain extraordinary survivors with a truly remarkable evolutionary story.